So, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume you watched the first video too, but if not, then hello! My name is Red, and I'm methodically going through each volume of my favorite manga one by one to explain the reasons why I love this series so much. Yes, these reviews are longer than they need to be, because I can't control myself, and I gush about Shizuka because she's my second favorite character of all time. So let's just dive right into Chapter 6, the first chapter of Volume 2. Also, since I forgot to mention it last time, this review not only contains spoilers for this volume, but any future or past volumes I may reference. The chapter starts with everyone going to check test results before Rentaro realizes his phone was left behind, so he returns to the classroom to get it, immediately meeting the next soulmate, Nano. Rentaro says he's panicked to lose his phone because of all the memories of them on it, but I would flip the fuck out if I misplaced my phone. I don't even like other people touching it, so the idea of leaving it somewhere by mistake horrifies me. After learning she always gets first place, he zings with her, and while he does still comment on it early on, it doesn't actually take very long for him to stop really acknowledging the zing outside of funny moments like when he zings with Chio. Nano is also the first person who doesn't really react to the zing, at least not immediately. He heads back to the other girls and they check their scores, to which he praises them since they all did better than him. Rentaro checks and sees the #1 spot is Nano AI, which is a fantastic name, by the way. Karine tells her that people think she is an AI, in case you missed the joke about her name. Later on, Rentaro gets paired with her for a science class, where he ruminates that unlike the other three, who exude cuteness, Nano demonstrates more beauty. Which, I like the distinction of different brands of attractiveness, especially since this is how Mimimi describes her later too. Nano just simply decides to copy from the textbook since she says it's the most efficient solution, which makes me wonder if she's done this before. And if so, does that actually work? I mean, she's perfect in every class, so can't help but wonder if she's done this before. He tells her that's not the point of the assignment, and she basically says all the school is pointless, which, I mean, most of the stuff you learn in school is typically pointless, but it's quite bold to say it so close to a teacher, alongside doing such blatant stuff like copying from the textbook. Rentaro accidentally cuts himself, and we are given Nano's first instance of straying from anything considered normal for her by sticking his finger in her mouth. She tries justifying that the chemicals in saliva act as a disinfectant, only to recognize later how it really could have had the opposite effect. It's surprisingly sensual, which, while she gets a few events early on where she's a bit sexual and the like, such as having Rentaro grope her in the pool, this kind of thing is a rarity for her. We even see his finger surrounded by darkness inside her mouth, which feels reminiscent of, other forms of Japanese media. We then get this funny shot of the other three girlfriends doing the class like normal, while Rentaro is freaking out behind them, and I can't help but be curious what they think if they saw this. Rentaro tries to talk to Nano more after class, but she continually brushes him off, saying that any time spent on things that don't directly correlate to her future prospects, such as her education, are pointless and meaningless, that they hold no purpose at all. In the barest sense of the word, that is true, but obviously, as Rentaro demonstrates, those moments, hobbies, experiences are just as important to one's life as academics or a career. Just having one or the other almost never leads to a fulfilled life. You need a balance of both. I actually feel like Nano comes across as harsher in the manga than the anime. I'm not exactly sure why that is, though. Perhaps it's the camera angles or a lack of a voice actor. Not to say her anime VA does a bad job, but her not having a voice at all makes it easier to see it as emotionless, I suppose. To my recollection, this is one of the only times Rentaro truly questions if someone is his soulmate. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head is Chio, but that's more for moral reasons than compatibility, like this is. We then cut to Nano at home attempting to work, but when she thinks of Rentaro, her facade finally breaks, and her blush makes her very adorable. She starts reciting pi to make herself focus. By the way, I can usually remember, like, 3.141592. And I question how the fuck some people in real life can actually remember this much. However, it doesn't work, even as she fills her entire room with pages of pi. She decides to come up with another way. The next day, she confesses her love for him, but when he accepts it, She immediately turns around and says no. He's confused until she says that she hoped he would reject her because love is insignificant and worthless. This, I believe, is the only time he's outright rejected by one of the girls at first. Yaku sort of does, but I'm not really sure it's the same. However, Rentaro won't accept 101st, and says he refuses to give in that easily, ending the chapter. I think this is a fairly strong beginning chapter for the volume, immediately introducing us to another girl, but one that's certainly different from the previous three. Nano, I think, is one of the weakest characters of the initial batch of girlfriends, but she's still great in her own merit for sure, though a lot of that comes from her connection with Shizuka she develops later on. I like the presentation of being a girlfriend that's a lot harsher than the previous ones, to the point that Rentaro even questions if she's really supposed to be a soulmate. And yet, despite that, he still readily accepts her when she sort of fake confesses. I don't have too much else to say regarding this first chapter, since a lot of my comments on Nano's character will be saved for Chapter 7, which we'll move right along into. Chapter 7 is Rentaro and Nano going to an amusement park for their first date, and Rentro's first date in general. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed that Nano was his first real date, but oh well. Regardless, I find it's nice that, so far, every girl has introduced a new first for him. The first two were his first kiss and first girlfriends. Shizuka was his first new girlfriend added to the family and first real kiss, and Nano is his first date. Obviously, as things go further, these firsts will die down, but it'll be nice to see if the pattern continues from here. Before the first date, Rentaro convinces Nano to go by saying that clearly they can't stop thinking about each other, which makes Nano panic in her mind, which is cute. It's nice seeing the emotion behind her cool mask, and that all he wants is one date, and then he'll leave her alone, even though he admits that he probably won't stop loving her straight away. It makes me wonder if this date had somehow failed, what would he have done? I feel like he'd be so torn between not wanting her to die, but also wanting to respect her wishes, and it would have been probably an interesting idea to explore. Though the final result of this date and the way he proves love to her is still really well done. At the park, Nano shows up in an absolutely gorgeous outfit, and I really wish we got to see the girls in more casual outfits more often. I know most of it takes place at school on the rooftop, but I still wish we could see this stuff more often, especially with a character like Nano. Like, her hair here is gorgeous, and I'm already taking too long, aren't I? They start with a merry-go-round, which, in my opinion, has always been one of the weakest parts of a park like this, though maybe that's why he started with it, and reveals he has an instant camera. Nano points out how it's pointless because if the photos get damaged or lost, you can never replace them, and Rentaro quickly rushes past that to take the first picture. He tells her to say cheese, and she's confused, which stuns me because I've never heard of someone not knowing that phrase for photos. From here, they do a few different things, such as a haunted house, where Nano points out how everything is fake, teacups, where she gets either dizzy or is completely confused about what's supposed to be fun about it. Kinda fair, I never liked teacups all that much myself. They also go into a maze where she looks over the walls and doesn't understand the point of a maze, and finally, they get onto the Ferris wheel. Once up there, however, Rentaro notices immediately that Nano is afraid, and surmises she has a fear of heights. She confirms it, also same girl, and he asks if he can move next to her side, to which she gives a small nod that's super adorable. She then grips his sleeve and he takes her hand before she squeezes it back tightly. And this is the scene that immediately sells her to me, showing that she does have humanity underneath her cold and overly logical exterior. With that done, we see Rentaro and Nano looking over the various pictures they took, and Rentaro being himself, he's able to accurately point out all the different emotions she was feeling in them, which impresses Nano as most people tell her she seems completely emotionless. He asks if she got anything out of the day, and she says she had fun, but no, the day was insignificant. Rentaro uses this as an excuse to try and burn the images before Nano remembers how she said the images taken could never be replicated, or replaced, and especially remembering the moment they held hands, she snatches the photos seemingly without even fully realizing what she was doing. Rentaro uses this to argue that she was worried about losing something, meaning she did indeed gain something from the day, even if small. I honestly love the way he presents arguments like this to the various girlfriends. The other main one that comes to mind is when he's talking to May. It's impressive, and only makes me respect him as a protagonist more. Nano begins to cry, which I doubt is something that has truly happened all that often, and after she calms down, she properly confesses to Rentaro to ask him out. Rentaro accepts, holding out his hand, and I like the little detail that he's still wearing the band-aid from his cut. It's a nice bit of symbolism. Nano kisses him, saying she wants to be efficient, which makes it one of the quickest kisses, and one of the few that doesn't follow the pattern of having the first kiss after being introduced to everyone else. It's a very beautiful kiss, though, I'll admit. And that's the end of Chapter 7. Nano's introduction is, in my opinion, a bit weaker than some, especially of the beginning batch, mostly carried by the hand-holding scene, Rentaro's argument, and to a lesser degree, the kiss. Not to say it's bad at all, but following Shizuka's absolutely incredible one is kind of a hard task, and this one doesn't quite live up to it. Regardless, it's still a decent chapter all the same, and while I feel like I should have more to say on it, I really don't. So, let's move on to Chapter 8, the Shameless Fan Service episode. We start with Nano being introduced to the others. I actually want to point out here how it feels like Nano is drawn with sharper features earlier on in the manga, but that her shapes get softer as we go. I might be completely imagining that, but if not, that's really cool. Also, yay, Nano and Shizuka meeting for the first time. Must feel special meeting their second soulmates. By this point, Karane doesn't really have any objections, and this is probably the last time she even comments on it. Rentaro once again promises to commit seppuku if he fails to make them happy, but Nano says poison is quicker and more effective. The next page directly says this is a fan service chapter and shows us the upcoming swimsuits, which I wish it didn't do, but oh well, not like it was new to me when I saw it. Hakuri complains about amusement park date, which gets the other two upset that they haven't been on a date, and even Nano says she'd want to go again. So, Hakuri, being clever and having set up the situation, offers for them to go to a water park. We cut to Karane trying to find a swimsuit to wear, and not quite being sure if she'll be able to show herself off like that. I can fully understand that feeling of not being comfortable showing off in certain ways you're not used to. My main thing is I don't like outfits that expose my belly, since it's the one part of my body I don't like right now, since I'm a bit chubby around there, unfortunately, which is just made worse from me being short. Though Karane is objectively way prettier than me, and I wish I looked like her. Karane wonders if maybe Rentaro will compliment her, and although she has this sentiment, it's enough to make her buy the swimsuit, but be scared to be seen in it. The day of the water park date, we initially see close-up shots of the girls in their swimsuits before getting a full shot of each, and Shizuka's so freaking adorable! Sorry. I am glad we get more swimsuit chapters later on, though, so we can see her in a real swimsuit, but the way her hair looks like this, it's just so cute. I can't handle it. Should have had better. Rentaro claims his life is complete, which, relatable, and Shizuka apologizes for her outfit. Rentaro tells her that her preciousness is a national treasure, which is absolutely true, and gives her the head pats that she very much deserves. I'm sorry. He asks where Karane is, and she reveals herself from hiding behind Hakuri, of course, and Rentaro thinks she was in the middle of changing, and is naked under the cloak towel thing. Good on him for mainly being concerned about others seeing her naked. She claims to be feeling chilly and tells the others to have fun. Nano tells her the best spot to warm up, and she says Nano doesn't need to worry, only for Nano to tell her that she's not being considerate since they're not close enough yet. I find this interesting comparing it to the character growth she shows in Kurumi's introduction, when she comes around to saying the opposite, that she does care about everyone. Karane tries to attack Nano for this, but Nano is one of the few people that can dodge her, which is a fun detail, and it's funny because Nano being super skilled like this doesn't come up too often, mostly in regards to saving Shizuka from various situations. Speaking of, for how much Nano and Shizuka are paired together later on, and given that Nano develops a crush on her, it's weird to see that they barely interact in their first chapter together. Shizuka runs up asking to sit with her since she can't swim, and seeing her try to be so supportive is just the cutest, especially with her expressions here, and Karane being gentle with giving her head pats, and oh my god! They get into the lazy river, and Shizuka begins to start spinning because her body isn't heavy enough to stop the momentum. It reminds me of that one video of the cat sitting on the scale that's so light that it reads as 0 grams. Hakuri uses the push of the river as an excuse to grab Rentaro's arm and push it against her chest, which Rentaro immediately calls out she's doing on purpose, once again showing us he isn't dense. But also notice, once more, that he isn't stopping her, and says he can barely keep control, because Holy shit, Hakuri. How are those things staying in that top? Also, Nano strides up and grabs his hand to plant it directly against her breast to one-up Hakuri, something most characters can't ever achieve. This, combined with dodging Karane, it's interesting to see her initial interactions with the others, and with this one, given how Nano isn't usually so openly sexual, it's fun to see her being so. Her and Hakuri begin to fight as, although it's clear she's very embarrassed to do so, Hakuri has Rentaro grope her as well, and this dude is so lucky. I wish I could grope a woman like this just once in my life. I mean, I love my boyfriend to death, but I just wish I could see what it feels like, just once. Maybe, one day. The two fight, arguing about firmness and bounciness, and Rentaro just fucking dies. Okay. Sorry. I just reading it and just laugh. Okay. It shows that despite being very virtuous and chaste, he's weak to lewd acts like anyone else who isn't asexual. Two girls attempt to give CPR but end up just kissing him instead since they're just so infatuated that they can't help themselves. Hakuri also uses her chest to smack Nano away for her second attempt, and that just makes me wonder if some woman somewhere has done that in real life at some point. I mean, surely it has to have happened, right? Either way, Hakuri actually uses her breasts as weapons a few times, though mostly against Karane, as you'd expect. This makes me wonder, too, if he would have actually been resuscitated if they managed to calm down themselves enough to actually perform CPR. Regardless, we cut to Shizuka, who has spun away from the others, and although she tries to swim to shore, she's so light that kicking her legs does nothing. We then get a, it was at this moment that Shizuka realized she fucked up joke, but with slightly different wording. I'll count this as a reference, though it's really a meme, but whatever. She then pops her ring against the side, and although I feel really bad for her, that panicked expression is also just so goddamn adorable. Everything about her is so cute. She gets stranded on an island in the lazy river, unable to properly call out for help, and somehow, no one ends up noticing her, not even Rentaro until she calls out. We go back to Nano and Hakuri, who, after seemingly continuous tries, can't get themselves to give proper CPR. They decide to run and get help, specifying that they needed to be a male lifeguard, twice, which is a funny joke. They run into a few guys who immediately start trying to hit on them, and the main guy thinks to himself that they're high schoolers, and the fact that he points it out gives me the impression that he isn't one, which only makes this even creepier. I know the trope of the group of delinquent guys wanting to assault the girl, most of the time in swimsuits, is a common one, and one I'm not really ever a fan of, but I like the way they resolve it in a unique and funny way, so I can give it a pass. The main guy says that he's always wanted to see what boobs feel like, and that they say gripping a girl's upper arm has the same softness as her boobs, so he tries to grab Hakuri's. I believe in the anime he specifies that it doesn't count as assault if it's the arm, so that's why he does it. But I'm pretty sure it would count as assault either way, right? Regardless, Nano stops him with a potent self-defense technique to the eyes, one that she even uses when she's a baby, so I can imagine she probably learned it very early on, which is good. Honestly, given this attack and how well she's able to dodge Karane's attacks, I almost feel like Nano could easily handle the other two guys on her own, but I understand the believability of her not being able to for the sake of the drama. Here we get a to-be-continued summary of Karane being chilly, Shizuka stranded, Rentaro dead, and the two girls in trouble as we end this chapter. I really, really like this chapter. It's one of my favorites in this volume, if not my favorite. The swimsuits are adorable and sexy, Nano's interactions with the other girls are fun and enjoyable, except none with Shizuka, which is lame and weird. The humor is on point, and overall, it's a strong first half for this mini pool arc. I'm glad it's not the only kind we get, but honestly, I think out of all the swimsuit chapters, this one is the best. Though, maybe I'll change my mind once I actually review them. Who knows? Let's move on to the next chapter. We start right where we left off, with Nano offering to hang out with them so Hakuri can leave. I like that the translation uses hang out for the manga, trying to keep a PG despite all the other stuff in it. Maybe specific times or something. Nano tells Hakuri to go keep looking for a male staff member because they have to keep reiterating it's male. Nano reasons that Hakuri has been Rentaro's girlfriend for longer, so he'd be more upset about her getting hurt. And in any other case, she might be right and her logic would make sense, but we know that's not at all how Rentaro feels, and Hakuri basically tells her such. Although I question why they don't just scream for help, considering they're in a public place. Surely someone would hear, right? Hakuri comes in and tells them neither of them are going with the guys, and although she doesn't show it, I'm sure this event really spoke to Nano and was the first real step to her getting attached to the other girls. One of the guys directly goes to grope Hakuri, but Rentaro steps in front of them just in time. He shouts that they're his girlfriends and to not touch them, and one of the guys questions the use of the plural of the word. Rentaro then hilariously offers himself instead, which to my knowledge hasn't really been done with this trope before. At least outside the guy being intimidating, like, how about we have some fun instead? With like a big muscle guy defending her. I hope that makes sense. They obviously turn down his gracious offer and say he can take whichever one is his girlfriend and go. He says both of them are, and the guy tells him to kiss them both, since he figures he wouldn't kiss another girl in front of his girlfriend. Rentaro initially says that he doesn't need to prove anything, which is correct, but I'm happy that Nano and Hakuri then both kiss him anyway. Which, this panel is genuinely beautiful, by the way. Hakuri reiterates that they're both his girlfriends, while Nano looks unfazed, though I'm sure her heart is racing and she's just hiding it. The guys freak out and call them insane and shameless, which I find funny considering almost everyone else in the series is okay with the polygamy. The main people who oppose it are a few family members like Hakuri at first and Kusuri's dad, but both are convinced. I suppose it's different for those who haven't experienced in Rentaro's charm firsthand. Rentaro also becomes monstrous over the insults to his girlfriends, which is relatable. Art could tell you just how mean I get when I talk about his bitch exes. Sorry. Hakuri and Nano question how he's alive, and we transition to a flashback. Side note, but I know this is more a manga thing rather than specifically 100 Girlfriends, but I like the consistency in manga that flashbacks are always shown with black backgrounds. I wonder how that was actually established. We see that Karane saw Hakuri and Nano being harassed, and I like the little detail that Karane still uses Nano's last name to show her newness to the family. She then sees Rentaro dead on the ground and rushes to his side, and the moment she says the others are in trouble, he awakens from the dead and runs to help. The flashback finished, he grabs Nano's hand and thanks her for keeping Hakuri safe before then saying that she shouldn't have put herself in trouble like that. I love the detail that his hands are shaking and how that probably helped settle for Nano the seriousness of his words and care for her. She then shyly apologizes, or at least shyly by her standards. I also want to point out that I like how she calls people by their full names. It's a subtle quirk that makes her stand out more, like how different characters tend to refer to Rentaro with different honorifics. Rentaro then learns that no one has seen Shizuka, and he starts freaking out and basically immediately figures out what could have happened, because he is always great at thinking ahead. He runs off to look for her. She's doing her best to try to get people's attention, but her phone dies. This is the only time this happens in the series, and I'm kind of surprised they don't use this as a gag for something more often. Rentaro appears shouting her name, but doesn't see her waving her arms. He's about to move on to a different pool, and she's worried he won't be able to hear her if she calls out over all the noise. Regardless, she takes a chance and does so anyway, and he, of course, immediately hears it. I almost feel like this is the last moment she ever truly doubts Rentaro, and her using her voice is so cute and adorable and powerful. Anytime she uses her voice, it's a pretty powerful moment. The main one I think of being the chapter that Rentaro finally confronts her mom, but that's way down the line from now. He rescues her and she kisses him, and it's so gentle and sweet, and I'm so jealous because I imagine she just gives like the softest kisses, like, you know, like a little bunny kiss. It's also the first really public kiss since it's on a different level and way more public than Nano's at the park. And considering it's from someone as meek and shy as Shizuka, it once more comes off as way stronger of a moment because of it. I'm honestly surprised he doesn't try to teach her how to swim after this too. When they come back, Hakuri asks if Karane is alright, and Rentaro asks to sit with her. Once they're alone, he directly confronts her about staring at Nano and Hakuri's boobs, which is surprisingly direct for him given how much he tends to avoid talking about chests at all, and how she must have been comparing herself to them. She of course denies it at first, but he continues by saying that her chest size is more normal for someone their age. It's funny because he has a point. In Japan, Hakuri and Nano definitely aren't the norm, but this is an anime world, and in most anime, there's bigger boobs more often than is statistically normal. It's just kind of funny to me that it's both true yet contradictory at the same time. Karane confirms her insecurity, and Rentaro tells her to stand up. I like the joke in the dub where he tells her to stand at attention like a drill sergeant, and she does it almost reflexively.
Sheesh. On your feet, soldier!
Sir! Huh? What? Wait, what's up?
He then grabs her cloak thing and yanks it off. And the panel absolutely makes it look pretty suggestive, but also, wow, she is also absolutely gorgeous in that swimsuit. Karane doesn't get these kinds of moments often, but she is genuinely really pretty. She starts attacking, but man is so relatable. He just stares in complete awe at how beautiful she is. He gushes at her adorable nature, she tries denying it, and he hugs her tightly. With this, he demonstrates how she can feel his heart beating like crazy, and he can feel hers because smaller boobs means you're closer to the heart. And he finds her attractive. Yeah, that too. I also can't imagine how intimate a hug like this feels with only bathing suits on, especially for two people who have only just recently started dating. He goes on to explain that it doesn't matter who she thinks is better or worse, because they all have things that make them special, and he loves all of them for all of those special ways. Rentaro has such a way with words, it's honestly hard not to fall for him. Also, since it's here, god, this shot of Karane pressed up against him is, like, really hot. Like, jeez. Just makes me jealous. I want to squeeze up against someone. I want to squeeze up my boyfriend like this. Ah. They pull away, and when Karane confirms she's alright, Rentaro, probably emboldened by Shizuka's kiss, looks around to check if the coast is clear before he kisses Karane. I actually only just realized writing the script that everyone gets a kiss in this chapter. And that's nice. Also, all the thought bubbles keep popping up showing how they love each other, and it's so fucking relatable. I swear, this amount of like, oh, I love him, I love him, I love him, is just how I feel about my boyfriend sometimes. When they get back to the others, of course Hakure compliments Karane's swimsuit and even asks for a good look at it. I know it's meant to be teasing, but maybe some part of it isn't. We then get a nice image of all of them together, ending off the chapter. This is absolutely the better of the two pool chapters. Everybody gets a kiss, with Shizuka getting an absolutely adorable one, and a cute and precious scene in general. The interaction with Hakure and Nano is amazing, Karane has some cuteness and sexiness here, and Rentaro continues demonstrating why he is just amazing. It's one of my favorites of the early chapters, and it was super fun talking about it. And we now move on to introduce the next girlfriend, who will be pivotal for formulating the more insane plots in the future, including one of my favorite arcs in the series. Chapter 10 starts off quick, in the middle of Rentaro's zing with the next girl as the others are pulling him through the hallway, meaning he isn't able to immediately talk to her. They're going to get some special pancakes, and Karane mentions Instagram, which I'm gonna count as a reference, since social media doesn't really come up very much. Also, I never noticed, but Kusuri has a boob mole, which I always find very hot, as I mentioned with Hakure and Chiaki. We then get to see her in her full body. I'm actually not sure if later on we're meant to know right away it's her or not. I'm assuming that it's believed that the reader should know, since in the anime, it's way more obvious with the bright red hair. Anyway, Rentaro comes back later to find Kusuri in her small form, but Rentaro doesn't realize that it's her. She introduces herself alongside using her catchphrase, which in this translation is yeppers, though it gets changed to the yep yep later on, which I'm happy about because that's much better than yeppers. Yep yep has even invaded my own vernacular at times. I like how he's thrown off by it at first until he imagines Nano saying it. He keeps trying to ask about the girl, but Kusuri hands him tea and asks him to stay still so she can show off her next experiment. For her first drug, she presents the human magnetization drug, and he says she should get a Nobel Prize for that. He then references Doraemon, and I don't know why this is one of the few references that was censored. Kusuri tries to explain how it works, and Rentaro tries to understand the logic, but very quickly gives up soon after this. And after this chapter and the next two, I think they basically stopped trying to properly explain her drugs at all. She asks him to drink it, and he questions this before she explains that you need to test a drug yourself to understand how it works. Her example being meth. I wonder if the word meth is censored in the original Japanese, because it is in the dub, along with the Breaking Bad reference, but that doesn't count since it's anime only. She says she hasn't done it herself, but she is interested. He finally takes it, and it works well, with things sticking to him, and Kusuri takes the opposite drug, which sucks her towards him, causing them to stick together. She rubs her face against his chest, and she's so cute that he calls her an adorable little creature, which is funny because usually that kind of vocabulary is saved for Shizuka. Kusuri says if she'd messed it up, they could have done a far lewder position, and I love the joke that they use in the dub.
This is risky. If we had drank from the same pool, I'd be stuck upside down and not even a little appropriate for public consumption.
I have 69 problems with that!
Kusuri says it'll only last for 10 minutes before realizing she has to pee. She explains she wears diapers and then goes then and there, which I'm not sure if this is meant to be purely comedic or a little bone to toss at a niche fetish, since it's not very explicit and doesn't come up much after Kusuri's initial introduction. Honestly, I could believe either. He tells her not to do it, but she goes ahead, and he's worried this will unlock a new fetish for him. And with how easily he falls in love, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the type to get new fetishes easily too. When they finally release from one another, she starts going on about how amazing drugs are, and Rentaro starts falling for her pretty hard. But he finds it conflicting because he doesn't believe she's the soulmate. I find that kind of strange though. He spent his entire life falling for 100 girls who weren't his soulmate, so is it really so weird to him that he couldn't fall in love again outside of soulmates? Or does he think he'll only ever fall for soulmates from here on out? Is that how it works? It's not exactly made clear. Kusuri reveals she spiked the tea with a love potion, explaining that she fell for Rentaro at first sight and wanted him to reciprocate. And oh my god, she's so freaking cute on this page! However, upon hearing this, Rentaro immediately tries to throw up the drink, which makes her freak out. We get the first of her freaked out faces, which I only mention because she has some of the best crash out expressions in the series, especially funny for someone like her. She takes this as a violent rejection, but Rentaro says he only wants to accept her confession while fully sober. However, he then starts to freak out, and here I want to ask, is the ba thing like a standard in anime and manga? Because I know I've seen it in several other places, like Neptunia and Nekopara, to name two off the top of my head. She wonders if she made the drug too strong and tries to give him the neutralizing drug, but since he's thrashing too much, she instead drinks it herself and then kisses him. It's a rare instance where the first kiss happens in the introductory chapter, though Kusuri basically says later that this doesn't count. Once he recovers, she thinks the potion is gone, but he says he still finds her cute, and she realizes that the reason it reacted so badly was because he had already fallen in love as hard as he could. She then apologizes as deeply as she can and properly asks to go out. He tells her to get up first before he says anything, but before she does, she reverts back to her big form, and he finally realizes this is the same girl from before. She explains this is what she really looks like, and her small form is the result of a failed immortality drug, and that the neutralizing drug temporarily turns her back into her true form. Now here's a funny thing. I've seen the anime twice, and read the entire manga, and it wasn't until taking notes for this video that I realized I misunderstood her. I thought the way it worked was that she takes the failed immortality drug, like, as a daily prescription, and that if she uses the neutralizing one, it will return her to normal permanently until she uses another immortality drug. I legitimately just completely misunderstood how it works, and I feel really silly for that now. I promise I pay attention, really, if this video's length is anything to go by. She also explains she's actually a third year, making her his senior, and that the small form is better since it has better eyesight and less hair. So, I question why she doesn't just cut her hair, but Kusuri is one of those types that are both smart and dumb at the same time. With all this info, Rentaro then prostrates himself the same way Kusuri did, and she hugs him, with him saying that this form gives completely different vibes, ending on a joke about her diaper again, only with a different flavor of joke since it's in her big form. And that's Kusuri's introduction. I honestly think it's weaker than a lot of the others, but I don't mind that much considering she proves herself in basically every other way, and is even the reason the more elaborate, insane plots happen as well. She's also a fun character in her own right, but unfortunately comes to lack many good pairings like all the previous characters we've met so far. Her main ones being Yaku and Chio, but that's fairly weak. Either way, that's later on, so for now, This chapter is one of the weaker ones in this volume, but the next two vastly make up for it by being some of my favorite chapters of the entire series. So, let's dive into the iconic Kiss Zombie chapters. First page, and these glasses look super cute on the girls. We get an entire chapter later on where all the girls try on glasses, though I don't remember why. Either way, I'm kind of a sucker for them, so they all look beautiful to me. Kusuri is introduced to the others, and her catchphrase is changed to yep yep. Makes me wonder if the anime decided to use that exact phrasing for the dub because of this translation or an official one. Not likely, but who knows. I like how you can see that Karane just looks annoyed this time, but doesn't argue anymore. Nana also gives her blessing in her own way. Kusuri explains she really likes drugs, but don't worry, she hasn't done meth yet. Naturally, Karane freaks out at this before Kusuri offers her a present, a boob-enhancing drug. She explains she doesn't need it, and also doesn't need the other two insulting drugs she offers. Kusuri states she learned about her traits from Rentaro, and Karane attacks violently, saying she hates him before Kusuri explains all the things he said were positive, and she made her own conclusions. And Karane demonstrates she's the good brand of tsundere because she immediately apologizes, asking while clearly teary-eyed if she hurt him, and saying she'd never even think of hating him. I just love tsunderes that apologize and show remorse the moment they find out they're wrong. It makes me so happy to see it. Rentaro says it's fine and that he likes her roughness, to which Kusuri asks if he's a masochist. Considering how he acts with Karane and what I mentioned before about easily acquiring fetishes, I'm honestly kind of in the camp that he is one, at least with Karane. For Hakuri, she gives her a drug that's meant to make her sexier, and it makes her sweat melt her clothes because she gets hotter! Ayy! This is super fucking hot, by the way. Perfectly hits a lot of my buttons. The scene was also the only one from the anime I saw before actually watching it. Yes, I was introduced through a lewd scene, which happened with A Sister's All You Need, too. Well, it didn't introduce me to that anime, but I saw that scene before I saw the show. Kusuri explains that nothing's hotter than a birthday suit, to which we actually get to see her butt, which I only bring up because I don't think that happens any other time in the series, other than, like, one scene with the babies. But Hakuri thinks that, although she wants Rentaro's attention and to do lewd stuff, being outright naked in a place like this is too much. In the dub, she also explains that it's about the escalation, if I recall correctly, that you can't just show everything all at once, you have to build up to it. I bet Karane is just completely mentally shutting down when met with such a sight. Major gay panic! Rentaro quickly hands over his gym clothes, and Hakuri freaks out about wearing them and being able to smell him. I have yet to do the wearing boyfriend's clothes thing myself, yet despite having the opportunity to do so, so I can't speak on whether this smelling thing is relatable or not, but I don't know. Hakuri then respects Kusuri so much she calls her One-sama, which is cute. Kusuri then gives Shizuka a drug that makes her grow bunny ears. Bunny! It's a bunny! It's a bunny, 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 bunny! It's a bunny Shizuka, it's a bunny Shizuka, oh my god, it's a bunny Shizuka! Oh my god, she's so fucking cute, I want to squeeze her, and I want to hug her, oh my god, she's the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my entire life! I just want to give you the hugs! Ah! Sorry. Sorry. Anyway, Rentaro calls her cuteness incarnate, and she says she isn't worthy of such praise, but she is because she's the cutest thing that has ever existed. He touches her ear, and in the anime she squeaks, so I imagine that it's here too. He asks what's wrong, and she says it's a new sensation. He interprets this as like when you rub a dog's ears, but the manga says he misunderstands. I believe that the implication based on that and her reaction is that it's actually arousing for her, which, yes, give us more slightly loose Shizuka stuff, it's always so good. It's so adorable in the way that it's lewd, which is so perfectly branded for her. Honestly, anytime she has something lewd, it's done this way, in a form of adorableness that makes it a lot more tailored to her character, and I'm all for it, man. Lastly, she gives Nano a drug for efficiency that allows her to make her hair move. Both this and the rabbit ears drug actually come back for the hair arc, which is cool. There's a few instances of continuity like this, like the Kiss Zombies coming back later or doing the baby stuff multiple times, and it's always enjoyable to see them. Also, we can see Hakure and Karane playing with Shizuka in the background, which is adorable, but also kind of funny to think about it. If it's arousing to Shizuka, it just makes it a little extra lewd. She uses the hair to pull him into a kiss, and both of them say they really enjoy this. However, Kusuri says any more doses increases the chances of her going bald, and while Nano says that would be more efficient, Rentaro isn't happy. I like that Nano points out how he'd love her even if she was bald, to which he says he'd love her even if she was hijacked by aliens, which comes up again in the novel, but that he'd still miss her beautiful hair. This causes her to blush, and she decides not to take the drug anymore. Everybody is fairly satisfied with this, and they all decide to drink some tea, but Kusuri needs to go. She initially wants to just use a diaper again, but she's told to just go. She panics and tells the girls that one of the drinks is for Rentaro and one is for the girls, and to not get them mixed up. Also, is it weird I kind of find Kusuri wiggling in the panel to be oddly adorable? It's mostly from her expression, it's just kind of cute. They decide that the small one must be for Rentaro and the big one for the girls, which makes sense. When Kusuri gets back, however, she sees they were given the wrong ones, but the girls have already drank. She reveals she spiked it with a drug that gives the drinker the desire to kiss the person they love, in the hopes that it would make Rentaro kiss her. He tells her that she doesn't need a drug, and that he wants to kiss her anyway. She cheers and hugs him, and is about to kiss him when Karane throws her far away. We then get a genuinely kinda awesome horror image with the kiss zombies as Kusuri looks at the scene in horror, getting a brief flashback to something that happened before. She tells Rentaro to run as Hakure attacks, slamming down hard enough to crack the roof. Kusuri explains that guys' form of sexual pleasure is physical, lewd stuff, but for girls it's spiritual pleasure in the form of kissing, and the drug has essentially brought them to their base instinct and desire to kiss the person they love more than anything else, removing any limitations in the process and allowing them to go to 100%. Basically, they have no inhibitions, so they don't hold back any of their strength, even if it were to injure them. This is really dumb logic, though, considering Hakure is way more lewd than Rentaro, and would likely crave that stuff way more. But, yeah, it's fine. I can let it slide as a basic explanation, since she also really does like kisses. Kusuri explains that all they want to do now is kiss, and if they catch Rentaro, they'll trap him in kisses for the rest of his life. Initially, he thinks that sounds like paradise, but Kusuri tells him if they don't turn back within an hour, the drug will circulate through their system enough that their personalities will be gone forever. With that, the setup is complete, and we get a Resident Evil reference to finish off the chapter. Overall, a very strong chapter for Kusuri's introduction to the group, and it's even still only the first of a 3-chapter arc. It has the Shizuka bunny ears, which are fucking adorable, and also lewd in a cute way, which also comes back later alongside the hair drug. It has the lewd scene with Hakure, and is a great setup to the zombie stuff, one of the best arcs in the series for a few reasons we'll get to. Kusuri is a very welcome addition to the group, both on her own merit and what she's able to bring to the table, especially regarding the plot lines she's able to set up later on. She's adorable, and though she has a childlike demeanor, it doesn't feel all that grating or annoying in my opinion. It's just a bit charming. The worst thing about her is the diaper stuff, but again, I think it's more for comedy than a fetish, and doesn't actually come up that often. It's one of the stronger group introductory chapters, I think, and I'm very excited to discuss the zombie arc, so let's just dive right on in. We start with the Resident Evil reference again, but since we counted it last time, we won't do it again. Kusuri and Rentaro rush into the school, needing to get to the biolab for the neutralizing drug. Rentaro wonders if there's a way to stop them, and Kusuri suggests using a drug that melts someone's face off, only to then splash it on the vice principal when she appears to get Rentaro for running in the halls. Rentaro actually shows concern for her, which I actually like. It shows that he's just a really kind person, which he also demonstrates later when he helps Shizuka despite the situation. However, it doesn't actually melt her face, but rather just her foundation, which, despite how terrifying she probably is, I can't help but be curious at what she does look like underneath. And Kusuri gets upset about a layer of foundation dropping her drug. They continue as the VP flees, and Nana starts giving orders to the others, and of course, Rentaro being Rentaro, he can understand despite them not using actual words, saying that they're going for a pincer attack. They decide to split up, and Shizuka chases Rentaro, though due to her slow speed, which in the anime we see Nano helping her move, which is adorable, he's sure he can outrun her, until she falls on her face, and being the loving boyfriend that he is, he immediately runs back to help, which is just precious, and I'd probably want to do the same. He takes her to the nurse, but she's conveniently away since she's a future soulmate. Could you imagine if he'd singed with her during this whole crisis? He takes care of her in his usual adorable way, only to then remember what's going on. But before he can flee, she tackles him onto the bed, and I gotta say, these fucking shots are amazing. This is so intimate, like, usually the kind of kissing saved to the bedroom, and the fact that it's Shizuka makes my heart melt. She's mostly cute and innocent, but whenever she gets the somewhat lewd or intimate stuff like this, the first real kiss, wanting to be tickled, or being the only one to see his penis later on, or the most surprising to me, the fact that when Rentaro dreams of her and turns into sex, it's always fun when it's her, showing that she is capable of some more intimacy despite her innocent demeanor. Initially, Rentaro feels powerless, but when he remembers Shizuka's smile, he gathers himself up and grabs her, hanging her up on a hook by her vest, promising to come back for her later. This whole little thing is so cute, her just being lifted up and hung on a hook, and then just her saying, "Kiss, kiss, kiss," over and over with the phone. The entire presentation of it in the anime melts me. Hey, I warned you that I would be gushing about Shizuka in this series, so you better deal with it. Rentaro continues and immediately runs into Hakari and Karane, who team up to use Karane's immense strength to take him down. He's pinned to the ground, and they start taking turns kissing him. He melts, finding himself utterly powerless once again, noting that they're stronger, and that he's outnumbered, and how this will be the end. However, to his luck, the two start arguing over who gets to kiss him, and their expressions while they're arguing like this is super adorable, even more so in the anime. Don't worry, I'm making the anime comparisons now, but that'll stop once we get past these initial volumes, obviously. Plus, the anime was my first experience with this series, so of course I'm going to reference it a lot. He realizes their personalities are still there in some ways, and he gets an idea, taking both of their heads and pushing them together into a kiss. After this initial kiss, the two break free and speak to one another in whatever their kiss language is. I'm super curious what they said to each other, and then start passionately making out, making this their second kiss together, and the first solo one of many. And holy shit, I'm sorry, but I'm a massive Yuri fan, and this is really fucking hot. I desperately wish I could make out with another girl like this, even just once. Like, just once. Maybe one day. I love my boyfriend, and I would never give him up for anything, even a perfect girl. But I do want to kiss a girl, just once. As a... Rentaro basically explains how the two both love him so much that that sort of translates to a love for each other, which then comes in the form of them fighting like a married couple. And the manga even seems to say that he doesn't quite understand that their feelings for each other are way more carnal than just both of them loving him. It's weird because I feel like Rentaro should understand their feelings, especially when he sees them kiss more times throughout the manga, but it seems like he only ever views it as a close friendship, which is a bit silly for him, in my opinion. I can't help but also wonder what kind of conversation they had after this, since in the first baby chapter, Hakari implies that they did have one, but we'll get to that conversation when we get there. Going back to this, God, the exposed butts, holding each other's cheeks, this is so goddamn passionate, they're even French kissing, which I haven't even done with my own boyfriend yet. Though, admittedly, I never considered it to sound all that appealing until after reading this manga. Yeah. This is probably my favorite of their kisses. It's so intense that Rentaro gets distracted for a bit and he has to snap himself out of it to keep moving. He tries to go into the chem lab, but Nano is standing right inside and he slams the door closed. Which, like, did Nano not see him? He was literally just right there. Or maybe she did see him but didn't think he could hide that fast and just assumed he got away. It's a bit weird. Anyway, he hides in a locker nearby, hoping Kusuri can at least make it there. And it's fun because we find out next page that Kusuri is here, but before it's revealed, we can actually see the top of her hair in these two panels. And that's where the chapter ends. I've already said it, but this is one of my favorite arcs in the series, and this chapter is the main example of it. And yes, it's because of the Shizuka and Hakari Karane kiss scenes, sue me. The Shizuka kiss is so beautiful and sweet and amazing, and the Hakari and Karane kiss is so fucking hot, I can't stand it. This chapter is one of the best in the series for sure, because it hits all of my weak points so well. It's also such a fun concept, and although I think it works well with the smaller cast, I can't help but wonder what this would have been like with the larger cast, and what fun things could come from it. Like maybe more Yuri kisses? But anyway, I really like this chapter a lot, and it is definitely the best of this arc. The final chapter of this arc starts where we left off in the locker. Rentaro is confused why she's here, and Kusuri explains that Nano figured out that if she takes out Kusuri, then she won't be able to make the neutralizing drug, which, just like with Hakurei and Karane, shows she's retained her intelligent nature, so she hid in here. Kusuri suggests Rentaro make a run for it to distract her, but Rentaro says she just out that Kusuri is waiting in the locker. He isn't at all sure what to do, and Kusuri begins to panic, saying that this has happened before, that she caused trouble for people because she got so wrapped up in her drugs, and now it's happening again to the person she loves. I really love this sort of insecurity Kusuri shows here, and it makes for a fun addition to her character, but it never really comes up again after this arc, and it's kind of a shame. I'm not really sure what else they could do with it, but I don't know, it always kind of bothered me how it was just dropped. She even says that she'll stop developing drugs, but before Rentaro can say anything, she reveals she has one vial of the neutralizing drug, just in case. Rentaro is happy and thinks that they can use it on Nano, but Kusuri takes it herself, and when Rentaro tries to get her to stop, she drops the vial and it breaks on the floor. That causes her to freak out and ask why he did that, and when he explains using it on Nano, she admits it would have been a good idea. However, Kusuri then turns back, saying that maybe she can trick Nano with this form since she hasn't seen it, and use a vinyl rope in the locker to tie her up in case she turns back while making the drug, since Kusuri only got a bit of the drug. Also, Rentaro is now embarrassed because Lucky Man is feeling her curvier form pressed up all against him. She steps out of the locker and Nano looks over to her, only to then say, "Insignificus," which is a really funny joke, to be honest. Kusuri then continues with trying to tie her up, and Nano looks back at her again. And Kusuri then fucks up her really good plan by speaking in third person and revealing herself. Nano ties her up instead, hot, and Rentaro despairs over what to do. He then sees the broken vial and gets an idea, taking a run out of the locker. Nano chases after him and they end up in what looks like a storage room. In the anime, we actually get a Shining reference here. But it's not in the manga, so we won't count it. Nano starts kissing him and we get a fun fake-out ending, which the anime also leans into. But then Kusuri speaks to get her attention, and when she turns, Kusuri shoves the neutralizing drug into her mouth, causing her to drink it and pass out. Also, this close-up of Nano's lips, oh my god, they always look so soft! Kusuri asks if he planned this, and he explains how since she only took a little bit of the drug, he knew she'd transform back quickly, which would let her escape the bonds, which Kusuri apparently didn't realize that's how she escaped, because Kusuri is, like I said, one of those characters that's simultaneously really smart and really dumb. They give the drug to the others and we watch them awaken. And of course, Hakurei is lying like that because she has to have this somewhat lewd position. At first she tries to apologize for what happened, but then she remembers how she made out with Karane, and instead pretends not to have remembered anything. She then asks about Karane feeling the same, and although she says she remembers at first, when she also recalls the kiss, she claims the same as Hakurei, and Rentaro, who knows they're lying, says he's happy their bond has deepened, which is just amazing. Also, Shizuka's expression here is so freaking cute. I also suspect that after this, Hakurei and Karane had a long talk in private, given what Hakurei says in the baby chapter, like I mentioned. Kusuri apologizes to everyone for causing all this, and Shizuka calls her drug dealer, which is just hilarious and kind of random for her. Rentaro says that while her drugs did cause this, they also fixed it, and asks her not to give up on the thing she really loves. All the other girlfriends think about how much they love Rentaro, with Hakurei thinking about how she's wet, which part of me wants to say came from remembering her kiss with Karane, because girl is really down bad for her sometimes. Kusuri cries, saying she really loves drugs and him, using the word 5 times just like the title of the manga, and they kiss. I don't like this kiss as much because it feels like it has a lot less attention and a slightly worse angle than the others, without even a close-up like some of the others had. It just feels a bit less special to me, I guess. But anyway, that's the end. Yeah, good to know. This is obviously only the second half of the main Kiss zombie arc, and while it's not as strong as the first, it still has some great moments. From how they figure out the way to defeat Nano, to Hakurei and Karane being embarrassed, and more. It's definitely weaker than the first part, but altogether the 2 chapters make up one of the best arcs in the series. However, it's not the best one. That one is coming up all throughout Volume 3. For now, this is one of the best introductions to the group we get for one of the girlfriends, and definitely beats out her introduction to Rentaro, as is the case with a lot of the girlfriends, with the only exception between Shizuka, Nano, and Kusuri so far being Shizuka. Just can't beat that insanely good chapter that always gets me emotional. With that, we only have one chapter left before the extras of this volume. In the anime, we start this off with seeing Hakuri and Hatori talking to one another, though it's silent and left vague, so while it doesn't reveal too much, you could argue that it might make it a bit too obvious that something is wrong outside the little foreshadowing that Hakuri has. Even so, I'm kind of sad we don't originally have it in the manga. Also, this first page has Nano giving Shizuka a flower crown, which I think is their first real sort of interaction in the manga, so it feels surprising it takes this long for it to happen. Also, it's beautiful, of course. They're all hanging out at a lovely-looking park, suggested by Hakuri. Everyone has their own reasons for loving it, and thank Hakuri for picking up the spot. Suddenly, they announce an event going on where they'll be throwing a bouquet, and whoever girl grabs it first gets to wear a wedding dress and take a photo alongside their groom. Here we get to see a flashback from Hakuri, saying she's always wanted to wear that dress, allowing us to see not only a cute, small Hakuri, but also our first glimpse at Hatori. It's nice to see Hakuri also had flowers in her hair like her mother when she was younger. However, opposing them is a monster of a woman with her tiny and adorable boyfriend. Nano explains they're a gang called the Gorilla Alliance, which is just a play on gorilla given how the woman looks. I'm gonna mess that up, calling that a few times, I can tell. They agree to all compete together for the bouquet, and then decide who gets it after that. They turn to see that the Gorilla Alliance is cheering, and so Rentaro asks Shizuka to cheer since the crowd might go overboard. She agrees and Nano pats her head, which I never noticed until writing this script, and that's fucking adorable. Kusuri reverts herself to her big form, and I don't know if it's the posing or what, but she looks kinda hot when she does this here. My boyfriend says he finds it hot when he sees me put my hair up, and now I kinda get it. I also like how Shizuka and Hakuri look in awe of her form, maybe because they hadn't seen it yet. Meanwhile, Nano has, and Karane wouldn't be as dumbstruck as those two. They come up with a name for their group, and this is the christening of the Rentaro family, which is then used to describe the harem from then on. They send Shizuka to cheer, and once again, nobody is immune to her cuteness as the Alliance find themselves watching her and calling her adorable like a pet. The bouquet toss is done by the vice principal as we learn not only her name, Baba An, but that she was a shot put representative. Rentaro asks if she's even human, and honestly, I don't think so, given how she looked 2 chapters ago. She throws it, and immediately the Alliance begin trying to cheat, almost hitting Hakuri as they throw their Alliance members into the crowd. Karane catches the guy, however, and dons his jacket, making her look super fucking cool. I'm sure Hakuri is wet now, She starts grappling with the leader as everybody heads for the bouquet. However, then they see something in the sky flying nearby, and they find that it's Shizuka, who was so light that the wind picked her up by holding the banner. This comes up as a running joke several times throughout the series, with Nano being the one to catch her most of the time. Also, the little hair buns really make Shizuka look even more like a small animal here. She lunges for the bouquet and gets it, and starts to fall. The other girls rush to catch her, but their bosoms are simply too soft and bouncy, and with Shizuka as light as she is, she bounces off, while not losing enough momentum. Rentaro, however, leaps to catch her in time. Shizuka, in tears, asks her to marry him, which could potentially be seen as foreshadowing, but probably not. Karane thanks the woman for allowing her to not be there trying to catch Shizuka, or else she would have felt completely inferior to her fellow girlfriend's large chests. And man, I just want to say the expressions in the anime are so good. From the embarrassed ones to the deadpan ones and angry ones, they're also amazing and fun and adorable, and I adore the art of this manga so much. I just realized I said anime by accident. I meant to say manga, but I don't want to go back and fix it. The Rentaro family celebrates, and Hakuri says they can draw lots to determine who gets the photo, as she's marked one of them, planning to let someone else draw first, and then her, choosing Nano as she predicts she'll pick the one closest to her, since she does so with every other lottery-type thing, banking on her efficiency. It's honestly a really, really smart plan, except she underestimates Nano's efficiency, and Nano suggests they all take one at the same time. However, Hakuri still gets the right one by luck, and here we get the joke where her thoughts and spoken words are accidentally reversed. However, Kusuri throws a fit, and Hakuri realizes that, as we come to know, she wants to break up with Rentaro, and feels that a photo of her would be too sad to look back on, so she offers it to Kusuri instead. And even Karane notices that feels odd, as does Rentaro, but that makes sense for him given how observant he is. Hakuri and Kusuri embrace, and after a moment, Kusuri goes back on it and says she should do it. I can't help but wonder why she changed her mind. Perhaps the hug simply calmed her down enough to hand it back over, Or maybe it was the hug, since I'm sure being buried in her chest has a sort of motherly effect. Who knows? Regardless, Hakuri accepts, and they all take the picture. While they're developing, Hakuri thanks Rentaro for everything he's done for her, and all the happy memories she made. She then asks Rentaro for one last request, to break up, leaving us on a cliffhanger for this volume, leading us into the best arc of the series. Oh boy! Now, this chapter is really cute and really fun. Introduces us to the Guerrero Alliance, who comes up again a few times, sets up the best arc in the series, gives us some nice shipping moments with Hakuri and Karane, and Shizuka and Nano for the first time, gives us the name Rentaro family for the first time, and is overall a really decent, fun chapter with an amazing cliffhanger. It's about one of the mid-range chapters of this volume, but what it sets out to do, it does it perfectly. I also like the change of pace setting from the school. We got that with the pool and the amusement park, but this one has always been really fun to me since a nice park like this is a really nice setting, especially in the anime. Regardless, overall, it's a nice chapter. However, we still have the extras left, and then I'm going to do something new and rank all the chapters of this volume. Who knows, maybe at the end when I do a mega video of the series as a whole, I'll rank them all together as well. In the extras, the Chapter 6 extra shows Karane asking why there's an Einsteinium, which, for real though, the only use I could find for it when doing research is literally just to make other elements. What a waste of an element to name after one of the greatest scientists of all time, man. Chapter 7 continues the gag from the chapter, which is a fun ending to that gag. 8 is the guy from the poll wanting to know what boobs feel like, which just, dude, be a better person, get a girlfriend actually your age, and find out. Or just use a brothel if you're really curious. 9 is Karane wanting a melon float. 10 is a cute image of Rentaro and Kusuri as they reminisce. 11 is Karane asking what the boob potion would have done. 12 is Karane launching Hakuri out the window by mistake. And 13 is Kusuri and Rentaro trying to pull the girls apart, with Rentaro even saying that they love each other way too much. The extra mini-chapter is Hakuri suggesting they play a game where Rentaro guesses who the girl is by touching their breasts. Rentaro says he isn't willing to do such a thing even for an extra chapter and leaves, so they instead just ask Karane to do that. Of course, she says no at first before Hakuri says she can either judge or be judged. She also adds that if she fails at all the girls get to touch her breasts. It's definitely a fan service chapter thing, but I'm A-okay with that. To minimize the ability to guess, Shizuka and Kusuri will stand on stools and have their hair up, so we get ponytail Shizuka! It's not as cute as her short hair, but oh my god! Also, she's the first up, and since she's normally drawn completely flat, seeing her get squished, especially by another girl, gets me going so bad. You have no idea. Like, Shizuka is a character that I almost never think of in a lewd way, but whenever stuff like this does come up that makes me think about it, God, I just can't properly describe how it feels. It's so cute. It hurts. This extra chapter is perfectly justified with just this alone, like, holy fuck. Anyway, Karane guesses it by the way she's trembling. Next up is Hakuri, who not only looks super happy, but of course gets a close-up where we can see her bra. And my god, the amount of description breasts get in this series is genuinely incredible. And then, of course, because of these two, Karane guesses it easily. Then, when the next one is big, she assumes immediately it's Nano, when it's actually Kusuri in big form. This causes Karane to lose, but we get an extra round to see Nano anyway, because they say the fans would get mad if they didn't. And so, Hakuri lunges on the chance to grope Karane before anybody else does. Of course. And we get to see Hakuri's mole again alongside seeing Kusuri's too. Makes sense given it's a fan service thing. They then all describe Karane's boobs, and god, these descriptions really make me want to grope someone! Consensually, obviously. I mean, I can grope myself, but, you know, it's not the same, you know? Does that make me sound pathetic? I'm a fucking hyper-bisexual leaning into women, okay? Just give me a break. This ends this part, but we still get a bit more, like seeing these two zinging, which is cute. I like seeing other zings throughout the series. We also get the love god showing up telling everyone to watch Spirited Away, giving us one last reference for this volume. And that's the very end of the volume for real. We're done. What an exciting volume, introducing some of the best characters and leading us into the best arc, giving us the first proper Hakuri and Karane kiss, and overall just serving as a volume full of adorableness, sexiness, and great humor and detail. Truly, this is where the series begins to shine brightly, and the next volume only continues that with ease with the introduction of Hahari, one of my personal favorite characters despite her being, well, Hahari. I'm sure it'll be a fun time all the same. I'm enjoying making this series immensely so far, and I hope anyone watching this is too. I can't wait to do the entire series and perhaps even other series in the future. I've definitely decided to do Reincarnated as a Slime and Watamote for one, but there's others I've been considering as well. Now, as I was writing this, a new spin-off manga started, and I plan to cover that in the future as well, since the first 2 chapters currently out are really good. But the last thing we need to do is the chapter rankings. First, for the first volume, from worst to best, or really least good, not worst, is 4, 5, 2, 1, then 3, of course. And for this volume, it goes 6, 14, 10, 11, 7, 8, 9, the extra chapter, 13, then finally 12. Please take the time to hype the video if you can, I'd really appreciate it, and please leave a like and comment as well. If you like 100 Girlfriends or my voice or my content, please consider subscribing because I've got both more of this stuff coming in the future, but also a bunch of other fun stuff like Ace Attorney, Doki Doki Literature Club, and Danganronpa in the works, alongside other random stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Love, love.